And I'll just kind of tell you my story, and then hopefully we'll have a chance for question and answer. And I really want to hear from you and what you're seeing in Alva. I'm not a politician, so I might mess up and say something I'm not supposed to at some point, but luckily my strategist is not here to kick me under the table when I say something wrong. Anyway, I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma. My dad was a pastor there. Went to Oklahoma State, got an accounting degree from there. And my mom was roommates with Gloria here in college. Is that right? Yeah. And so Andrea, we'll have to catch up afterwards, was my age, and we went to school together too. So, but anyway, went to Oklahoma State. The way I paid my way through college was I sold books with the Southwestern Company. It's kind of a unique part about my story. It's a door-to-door sales job. I did really well my first year with that. I came back, I recruited all of my college friends and all of my buddies from OU, and by the time I graduated from college, I had 50 college kids working for me. So it was my first experience of leading a sales organization. I found out I loved working with my friends. I was super entrepreneurial, wanted to have my own business. So fast forward, moved to Tulsa. Got into aviation. I'm a pilot. I've got about 2,700 hours. I thought I wanted to get into that field, so that's what brought me to Tulsa. And met my wife, Sarah. We've been married for 19 years, and we have 6 children, from 17 down to 3. 3 boys and 3 girls. So my wife always wants me to remind everybody to be praying for her during this campaign, not just me, because she's got the tough job. Anyway, so then I got into the mortgage business, and I started my company, Gateway Mortgage Group, in January of 2000 with $1,000 in a computer. And today, fast forward to today, 18 years later, we now have over 1,100 employees. We do business in 40 states. We have about 155 offices. Kind of been an American dream story for the last 18 years. So that's just kind of what I've been doing for the last 18 years. It's been hiring people smarter than me, putting them in the right positions, leading, setting the vision, setting the strategy for our company. So why am I running for governor? So last year, this governor race, I started thinking about it. It kept coming up. And as a man of faith, I just feel like it's something I'm supposed to do. And it was a very agonizing, tough decision, trust me. I wanted the fleece wet. I wanted it dry. I wanted it wet again. I wanted a burning bush experience. But ultimately, if I did not do this, 10 years from now, I'd regret it and feel like I missed something. And so I just feel like you get those feelings you're supposed to do something, and I feel like I'm supposed to run for governor. So I'm doing it. And practically speaking, though, I get a chance to travel. And I've got offices all over Texas and South Carolina and Tennessee and Arkansas and Colorado and all around the states around us. And I travel to those offices, and I see all the momentum coming out of these other states, and the positivity and the growth and the jobs, the economy's booming. And then I come back to Oklahoma, the state that I love, that I'm raising my family and growing my business, and it just feels like we're a little bit down in the dumps. We had a negative 3% growth last year compared to all the states around us tremendously growing. And we're going to 4-day school weeks trying to save money. And we've got a budget deficit compared to other states Arkansas has a budget surplus right now. And I'm like, what is going on? I know we can do so much better. Then I look at who's running for governor, and to me, it just looks like more of the same, just kind of the same, career politicians running for their next election. And I truly believe that if we keep electing the same guys or gals, that we will be in the same situation 8 years from now. So I want to take off from my company and go serve my state. And I think that's what our forefathers wanted us to do. They wanted us to temporarily leave our farm or business and go serve our state. And that's my idea of how it should work. And I want to focus on the next generation and what's best for all 4 million Oklahomans 10 years from now, without regard to the next election. And too often, our career politicians are so worried about getting reelected. They're afraid they're upset this industry or this special interest group or this group, that they won't make the right decision for all of Oklahoma. So that's the kind of governor I want to be. Kind of my vision. So at Gateway, we have a vision to be a top 10 lender. We want to be top 10 in sales, top 10 in servicing, top 10 places to work. We want to be top 10 employee benefits. We want to be top 10 in everything we do. So at the state level, and I think that's the job of the leader of the company, is to set that vision, where you're going to go and what the direction is for the company. So as the governor, I want to set the big vision for our state. I want us to be a top 10 state. I think we can be top 10 in education, top 10 in growth, and top 10 in infrastructure. And when the governor sets the vision, I explain it like it's a rubber band. I'm pulling that rubber band and I'm pointing it where we're going, to the big beacon in the sky. And I'm pointing at where we're going. I don't want to pull that rubber band so tight where it breaks, but I certainly don't want a rubber band just sitting in my hand with no direction. And right now I feel like our state is like that rubber band in our hand. We just don't know where we're going or what direction we're supposed to go. So to me, it's not necessarily a Republican or Democrat or rural versus urban issue. It's usually a change issue. When you start talking about change, that's when everybody doesn't want to make any kind of changes. So, but when you have a goal to be top 10, I see it in my company, I know we'd see it in the state, then everybody rallies around. We've got to do things differently than got us to 49th, okay? So a couple of specifically, I've got 5 pillars that I run my business with, and I think about leading the state the same way. We need kind of a 5-pillar approach. And so my 5 pillars that I would run the state with would be: we need a growth plan, we need education, health, infrastructure, and efficiency. So those are the 5 big pillars that never change. What changes when you're leading an organization and what you're going to execute on this year? What are the 5 things we're going to do under growth? Because you always have to have a growth plan. What are the 5 things that we're going to do for education this year, for health, for efficiencies, or for infrastructure? And so just to give you a couple ideas of how I think about things, then I really want to hear from you guys and gals. So on growth, a lot of this is blocking and tackling, in my opinion. Why are some businesses successful and some states successful, and some states aren't successful and some businesses aren't successful? Our company is up 20% this year when the overall industry is off 15%. Mortgage rates have kind of gone up a little bit, refis have dried up. Nationally, the number of mortgages done are off 15%. We're still up 20%. Why is that? Well, we've got recruiters in Florida, we've got them in New Jersey, we've got them in the Carolinas, we've got them in Seattle. We're actively out there growing the company, hiring, growing. We've got a plan and we're just executing on it. So I know we can do that. I've talked to people at the state level, from the Commerce Department all the way that work for David Boren all the way through Fallon. We used to have commerce departments in California, overseas, recruiting businesses in. We don't do that anymore. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity over the next 10 years with what's happening nationally with the tax change from 35% corporate tax to 21%, the emphasis of bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. I think we have a window over the next 10 years. Why not Oklahoma? Why can't we attract that here to Oklahoma? And so I want to be like the governor of Texas that's calling 2 CEOs a day and getting that stuff growing. And I've been doing it all the way since college. I've done it all the way through my career, and I want to take it off, and I want to do it for Oklahoma now. But I don't think we can necessarily grow as fast as I want if we don't fix education, because we are losing the marketing battle in education as well. And the business owners and the business leaders and the rural communities I talk to and the urban communities, they're having trouble recruiting the talent because we're losing the marketing battle in education. The way I think about that, I look at everything in kind of a 6-state footprint around Oklahoma, and I call that market. To me, you always have to be in market and pay what market rate is. So I think we need to pay teachers kind of what market is. And so we need to pay what Arkansas pays, what Texas, what Kansas in the common education system. And like I hire underwriters all the time. And if I hired underwriters and paid them $10,000 less than market, I'm probably not going to get the highest quality underwriters. Then eventually I have high delinquency, and eventually I go out of business. So to me, that's kind of a starting point in education. But the other thing, we need some kind of reform, which we can come back to that in a second. But efficiencies. I want to real quick tell you how I think about efficiencies and how we do it in the business world and what I think about it in the government. So I have 25 different cost centers at my company. And so if you are running technology, for example, are you good at IT?
No. No. Don't put me.
Well, all right. Well, just pretend like you are. So if we're building our budget next year, and we have 25 different cost centers, IT is one of them, and you come to me and say, Kevin, we've got to hire 10 new people next year, and we've got to upgrade, we've got to buy 400 new computers and do away with 400 old ones, and we've got to buy this software and this software and this software. I just get spun in a circle. It's so much information. If you think about it, not one person can understand all the details, right? It would take me 2 weeks to dig into the IT's world to find out, Do we really need 10 more people? We already have 43 people in IT. Why do we need 10 more? Let me look at the list of those 400 computers you think we have to rebuy. You sure we can't get another year out of them? When did we buy them? Why do we have to upgrade those? Let me look at the software. You see what I'm saying? It's just so much information to understand. Whether you're the governor or you're the CEO of a company, you have to have a way to make decisions. So I break everything down to a number or a metric, okay? So if you're running underwriting for us, I take our underwriting cost center. So that means all of our employee costs and all of our rent and everything that goes into underwriting, and I divide it by the number of loans we do. We do 3,000 home loans a month. So I come up with a number, and that number for us is $267. So it costs us $267 to underwrite a home loan, okay? So you can hire as many people as you want this year, as many underwriters, but remember your number's 267. That's your metric, right? So next January, if we're doing 4,000 home loans, then of course you can hire more. But if we've actually shrunk and we're only doing 2,500, you've actually got to shrink, right? Because when you divide that out, that's your metric. So why is that so important? Because when I look across all the different 120 agencies at state government, and there's like over 400 boards and commissions, I ask myself, what is the metric? What are they services are they delivering for citizens? As Republican conservatives, we know we've got to deliver services for our citizens. We just want to do them efficiently. So I see some agencies have 500 employees, some of them have 1,000 employees, and I think how many they have last year, how many they have the year before. Are they doing more services for the people than they used to do? What is the metric? Because bigger budgets aren't always necessarily better outcomes. And everybody always wants to start here and then add on to it, right? So I'm looking at software that we can put a metric on every single different agency and then give us as taxpayers, access to that to dial in to see exactly what the services that they're delivering for us. And I want to be the governor that brings Oklahoma to the 21st century, because we cannot keep doing the same things since 1907 and expect different results. And the world is different than the way we've set up things a long time ago. So we've got to think outside the box. Other states are doing it, other governors are doing it, and I just don't think the guys that are running are going to be able to do anything different and get us out of the mess that they've already got us into. The career politicians are just going to perpetuate it. So that's why I want to take off and be your next governor. With that, let me be quiet and open it up to comments and questions, and want to hear from you. And this really helps me more than anything, is to learn what's happening in Alva and what we can do to help you grow and what issues that you're facing here. So let me open it up to the floor and your comments.
We've had 2 or 3 years of $1 billion deficit, and that's then why it cuts to 4-day school weeks and all that. How would you make up the $1 billion that we need?
Yeah. So when I look at the overall budget, we spend $22 billion in our state. Okay, we spend $22 billion. We only get to appropriate $6.5 billion. All right, so that's all the legislature gets to appropriate. The rest of the money from previous legislative sessions has been earmarked for different things. I believe we need more control over the overall budget. So when we say $22 billion, and I look at divide that by our citizens and what we have, that is very similar to other states per person. So I don't think we have a revenue problem, but nobody can tell me for sure, because every time I turn around, and this is what makes everybody so frustrated, the Department of Health has found, misappropriating $32 million, and this agency loses this, and so that's what's so frustrating. And here's a kind of a funny thing. I meet with Ken Miller, who's the treasurer, and I meet with him again and again, and I'm trying to meet with him again, and he's like, "Kevin, why are you wanting to meet again?" And he goes, "The other governor candidates just want talking points." And I'm like, well, if I don't know how the money flows, I don't know if I've got a revenue or an expense problem. So in business, we look at revenue and expense. So I don't mind looking at revenue and expense, but ultimately, I think the $22 billion, we need to make sure we know how that's spent first before we ask the citizens to pay any more revenue. And so there's just a lot of structure there that we need. The governor also needs a little bit more authority to hire the right people in the state agency heads, and that's one other thing that I'm working on is being able to appoint the right people at those agency heads, efficient people. And it takes a long time to figure out how to hire the right people. When I first got in business after college, I hired all my college buddies, and I was like, these are the worst people to hire. I got to hire people smarter than me and process-oriented and detailed, right? And so that's the thing that you see in the state government. I truly believe that the people that we elect governor, it's so hard to get there and win. When they finally get there, they're like, all right, I'm in for 4 years. Let's start campaigning again in 3, and let me put all my buddies around in different positions. And I'm going to be doing the opposite. I'm going to be bringing people from the outside and the private sector and some of you guys to come serve with me on different boards and commissions and temporarily serve our state. So.
Services to rural areas are never going to look very good on your metric.
Mm-hmm. Would you say services to rural areas?
Rural areas like ours don't look good on metric.
Mm-hmm. I believe in local control, and so I believe that you're closer to what you need in your community. So keeping your revenue here in your county is something that's important to me. And specifically, we can talk specifics on what you're considering. But I'm a rural guy. Appreciate the rural part of Oklahoma, and that's why I'm here and in different parts of the state. My granddad had an 8th grade education and was a dairy farmer from Skytook. So that I spent all my summers there. I love that. That's where my mom grew up. And my other granddad was the vet at Oklahoma City Stockyards for 25 years. And so love the rural area. But I'm also trying to learn from you and what you need in Alva, because I'm not going to be the governor just for Tulsa or just Oklahoma City or just Alva, but I want to be the governor for all of Oklahoma. And I believe when we get our whole state growing, it helps everybody. It helps you. It helps me. It helps everybody all over Oklahoma. And when you get jobs going, the dollar spends about 7 times. And so when you get the economy moving, it's going to help the bicycle stores, and it's going to help the insurance companies and the farmers, and it's going to help education. It's going to help everybody.
What do you think about the TSET money and how it's being spent right now? The tobacco trust.
Yeah, I'd rather see that money be spent more in kind of the rural hospitals and some stuff that it should be going for, instead of just telling us, not to drink sugary drinks or coffee or, mimicking what they're doing in New York City. So those are some things. I met this morning. I was in Oklahoma City at 6:30 this morning with a doctor group, and they were talking about using that money more for the rural hospitals, which sounded very, very intriguing. Tell me about your hospital's situation here, your health care.
It is a city-owned hospital.
Okay.
Hanging on by its fingernails.
Okay.
They've been rescued many times by a charitable trust, shared trust. Terrible problems in recruiting physicians because all of them want to be near big cities and their support groups. And yet it saves many, many lives per year because of its proximity. The average time from an ambulance call to this hospital is 3 minutes.
Okay.
And so it's highly needed, but like most rural hospitals, they're trying to hang on.
Yeah.
Any ideas on what you can do about rural health care? Because our hospital is a mirror of most of the rural hospitals.
Well, Medicaid has really started to drain our state. So when I started researching it, we've gone from about $700 million when Keating was governor to it's $2.1 billion today. We've gone from 500,000 people on Medicaid to now over 1 million. That's like 27% of our population now is on Medicaid. Medicaid was designed for, your disabled, your people with children, but not able-bodied adults without children. So what's happening is you've exploded it so much and bloated it so much, you can't take care of actually the people that we're supposed to take care of. So going back and just doing simple audits can take the people off that shouldn't be on there. And I'm all for helping the people that need helping, but I'm for trampolines, not hammocks. I don't want to create a system that you can just stay in forever, right? And so you've got to look and make some tough decisions there to be able to fund the things we're supposed to be able to fund. And so those are and we can talk about, the criminal justice as well. I'm for criminal justice reform because we're number 1 in female incarceration in our nation, number 2 overall. I don't want to be weak on crime, but I look at Texas and the criminal justice reform they've done, and we're either going to spend $2 billion on new prisons, or we're going to have to figure better outcomes for some of the addictive personalities, right? So I was over in Claremore and met with this wonderful lady. She was incarcerated, had a drug problem. It's been 17 years ago. Nice Christian woman. Now she has a ministry that's to addictions, basically. And basically, she was in prison, been out 17 years now. She told me a story. There was a lady that had $200 worth of drugs, and it's the amount of drugs that can fit in your palm of your hand. And then if you have Sudafed on you as well, then you can be classified as manufacturing. And so, real case, in one county, the lady got 45 years for this crime. And another county might give the exact same crime 5 years, or another state might give somebody like that 3 years, right? So, on the same deals, on multiple offenses. So the problem is, there's some counties doing 45 years. The injustice in sentencing is something that's bothering me as I get more and more into it. And just because you have the money to defend yourself, or you might happen to have it in this county versus this county or this judge, that injustice in sentencing doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know how much rehabilitation you can do on a 45-year sentence versus a 2 or 3 year sentence. But I mean, I obviously want to take the advice of the law enforcement and not want to be weak on crime at all. But I know other states are doing things differently. And in business, I look at what my competition's doing, and I take those ideas and I implement them. And I'm going to look at what the other states are doing and implement those ideas and bring those before you, the people in Oklahoma, and then just do a make sense idea.
What about our hospital? We have excellent support through telemedicine, through St. Anthony. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think telemedicine is fantastic.
It worked out very well for us.
Yeah, that's great. And so, the triage or the emergency room stuff here, are you saying that you need a full service hospital, or you want you want the heart stuff to go to Oklahoma City or go to Wichita, but you just definitely want to be able to have the triage, the emergency room, the life-saving?
We're far enough away from Wichita or Oklahoma City that
Yeah.
it's a $50,000 helicopter ride every time somebody comes to the ER. They need heart surgeon.
Yeah,
Helicopters call in, $50,000 ambulance fee.
right. Yeah,
That's pretty expensive.
sure, absolutely.
The other thing that I understand there's a lot of push down in Oklahoma City is to let nurse practitioners do what doctors have been doing. How do you feel about that?
I don't know enough about that yet. You're saying pass the law to let nurse practitioners do
more one-on-one with no supervision.
Yeah, that's a complicated one. Other states are doing that, especially in the rural areas. I don't know enough about it yet. I know the doctors are against that for sure, because they think if you want to practice medicine, go to medical school. I get that. However, you've got to be smart enough. That everybody pitches their book at you. So of course the doctors see that as a way that they're going to make less revenue. So, but if it's the right thing for rural Oklahoma, or it's the right thing to attract the right talent, I would definitely consider it. I need to do more research on that though. I don't know the answer to that.
Personally, I think since the practitioners are not trained right now to work on independently, that it's a pretty scary thing.
Yeah, I think the way other states do it though is they'll have one doc overseeing 4, 5, 6 PAs, and so they're not totally on their own. They definitely have an overseeing physician that helps them, and it's the minor cases. But the teledoc stuff, you could make the same argument that they're not really seeing the patient. And as technology changes, there's other ways that we can deliver certain. Like we are self-insured at our company, and so we have a deal that if you're 4 a.m. in the middle of the night, your kid has an earache, you can call the teledoc and you can get a doc on the phone or whatever, and they can call in a prescription and you can give them the symptoms, and that's kind of the way stuff's moving. So we don't want to put our head in the sand about new technology and new way things are moving to save money, for sure. But I think we need to go back and address the overall, get the wrong people off the Medicaid, right? So we can actually deliver the right amount of money to the people that need it, and also be able to fund the rural hospitals or whatever we need to do there. man, y'all are gonna get me out of here early so I can have a good sandwich from, where's the best place to eat in Alva?
Let's talk about the university here.
Restaurant?
We need restaurants.
Let's talk about the university here.
Okay.
Northwestern Oklahoma State University is one of the 6 state regional universities. In the last year, it got 17% funding cut. I think nearly all the state universities experience things like that. It's one of the most economical schools in the nation. Newsweek every year says this is one of the best bargains in education here. And yet we are seeing faculty cut, we're seeing services cut because of funding. And any ideas on what can be done for our higher education?
You know, when you talk about that, we're in a technology center right now, right? We're at VOTech. It used to be called VOTech when we were in high school. It's Career Tech now. So to me, nobody is aligning how we educate our workforce. And if you think about it, you've got Common Ed, which is K through 12, then you've got the Career Techs, and you've got Higher Ed, right? So they all have a great purpose. However, when I look at how the money moves between those, everything is so siloed. And so what I mean by that, the Career Techs, I don't know if I've got any Career Tech people in here, but I'm about to offend you if I do. So Career Techs have $520 million in their capital improvement account. They can only spend that on new buildings, okay? So if we're all on a board thinking about how we're educating our kids, and this is what I do in the private sector, but I say, please take off your Career Tech hat, or take off your Higher Ed hat, or take off your Common Ed hat, and we're just Oklahomans. We're thinking about educating our kids right now. So right now we would say to ourselves, we probably don't need new buildings. We probably need to move this $520 million, be able to move it down here and pay teachers more in Common Ed, or be able to move it over here to Higher Ed, right? So that's the whole thing that I get frustrated about, is things change over time. And when you have the only reason this is maybe overfunded, or this is underfunded, or this is overfunded, is because they have a certain amount of millage that they get no matter what. Okay, so that was set up in 1960. And other states, once you're fully funded in your capital improvement account, for example, it would go into an operating account. Okay, and so that's the whole point, is we need to be thinking back. We need to think through how that whole $22 billion is spent, and if the college here needs it, or if the common education needs it right now, or if this needs it here. That's kind of how we need to be able to have the money fungible, I believe. And that just is going to take a leader that's willing to kind of break down the the silos. And the way that I run my business, if I'm the CEO for all 1,100 families, and so what if I was the leader that was just in love with my IT department, or my HR department, or my risk, or my sales department? You've got to have somebody that thinks about what's best for everybody, and that's the difficult part as I see this today. Specifically on the cuts, I wouldn't pick on this university over another university. I would treat them all fairly, and if there had to be a cut, there's got to be a cut everywhere, or if there's revenue everywhere.
So how do you get?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
No, go ahead, he was first.
How do you get the business sense that you're trying to bring to the state to trickle down to the universities?
Yeah. You know, you need more authority over, like I met with Keating's chief of staff, a guy named Howard Barnett. He said, Kevin, if you change one law, it'd make all the difference. He said, the governor has to have the ability to remove board members. So the way it's set up today is the governor will appoint a board member, then they're there for their term, 7 years. Well, the boards are the ones that elect the agency heads. And he said, we would appoint the most staunch, smaller government, disciplined person to that board, and 30 days later they'd be back in our office, he said, saying, man, we got to get more money for this agency. The agencies were so good at telling them all the good they're doing. If only they had more money, they could do more good, right? He said, you've got to be able to control the board more, to be able to remove some of those bad apples, to get the right agency heads there, because we need process-oriented people that know they have to deliver services, but not losing $32 million and playing politics and cutting senior services and keeping all of their employees in place, right? If we have to tighten our belts, let's tighten our belts, and we may have to tighten our belts, but we're not going to lay off the actual services that we're delivering. Then your organization starts, looking like this, right, instead of like this. You see what I'm saying? So and then it takes working together. I can't do my business by myself. You can't do your business by yourself. I can't do government by myself. I've already reached out and met with, called all the 101 reps and all the senators, and either left a message or talked to them. I've gone to lunch or dinner with a bunch of them, and I ask them, if I'm fortunate enough to win, how could I do a better job? And they tell me, Kevin, have a plan and meet with us. Come hang out with us on the 4th floor. I really just think it's having a plan. You can't lead from the House and Senate. We got to have a plan from the executive branch, and we've got to roll it out. And then help those guys and work with them in their different districts. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What do you feel about this raise in gross production tax and the constant dependency on the oil and gas industry in the state?
Yeah. So I love the oil and gas industry, love all industries. I think that they're feeling bad, that they feel like they're getting picked on a little bit. So I think if we need revenue, we need to talk about that. I would look at a 6-state footprint around Oklahoma. Again, that's what I call market. And we would look at market and we'd see what other states charge that industry. And then that would be the starting point that we would talk to their industry. But you wouldn't want to single them out without also talking about tax reform as a whole. And that's the wind, and that's this industry. There's about 150 different tax exemptions in our state. And when I look at other states, Texas, for example, only has 30. And so I don't think it's fair to give an incentive to one industry over another, and I try to be fair to everybody. And the best way I know to do that is just to look at market. So if the going rate in mortgages today on a 30-year fix is 4%, then I need to be at 4% to win your business. If I'm at 5%, I know I can't win your business. In other words, if you're taxed higher, I can't win your business. But I certainly don't need to give you a rate at 3% to earn your business. If the rate's 4, the rate's 4, right? So that's kind of what I call market and how I think about things. Yes, sir.
You spoke of how the state has consistently mismanaged education. Charter schools have done very well in urban centers across the country. Do you think there's a larger role for the market to play in education in the state of Oklahoma?
In charter schools? Yeah, I do. I love the idea of choice. I visited, there was a Santa Fe charter school in South Oklahoma City that educated 98% Hispanic there. They're doing a great job over the traditional public schools there. They have like 90% acceptance rates to colleges. There's definitely a place for that. However, I know, but charter schools are basically public schools as well. And there's 600,000 or plus, students in our state. We need to make sure that we're driving the right outcomes to all 600,000. We've got to shore up and fix that and look at what other states are doing. And that's going to take some tough choices probably. We're spending too much in administration costs compared to other states. We're like number 6 right now in administration costs. That's why we can't, pay our teachers what we should. We're wasting too much money at the top. And I look at I have 155 offices, and we want to spend about $650 per employee in rent cost, okay? So it'd be foolish for me to open up our Enid, Oklahoma office and spend $10,000 a month in rent and only have 2 employees there. We can't do enough loans to justify that, right? Well, I look across our 550 different school districts in our state, and 550 different administrators, and some districts are very efficient. They spend $6 a kid in administration cost, but some districts spend as much as $900 per kid in administration cost. So to me, you got to go back and look at the funding formula and make sure that you're funding the right amount of per kid in administration cost, and then you go back to the local control. You let the local communities decide exactly how they need to spend that money.
Again, in rural schools.
Yeah.
It's not gonna ever work how you want it to work.
Okay.
It's not gonna work like it works in the city.
Okay.
But don't you need as good a superintendent at Freedom as you do in Oklahoma City? Don't you need that same quality person?
Well, what I would argue is, to me, that would be like a principal, or you would have a,
And then who's gonna be the superintendent?
Well, my point is, you can't have a superintendent for every kid.
Right.
Can you have them for 20 kids, 50 kids, 100 kids, 1,000 kids? If there's one, because if one state Florida, for example, they do it with, they're 7 times our population, and they do it with 75 superintendents, and we have 530. So maybe that's not the right amount, but there's something there, right? So we can't, everything that you guys are asking me, we've got to fund this, then we also have to have some real conversations about real solutions and where are we wasting? Are we ready to really tighten our belts to fund this hospital or this or this? And that's the whole thing, is I just think of things, what is market, what do other states do? Let's bring some of those ideas here and bring Oklahoma to the 21st century. So those are kind of some of my thoughts. And I don't have all the answers for sure. I've got to I got to get a lot of, because I've been doing mortgages for the last 17 years. So I'm going to need a lot of help from the education community to figure that out for sure.
One of the reasons that rural Oklahomans are scared of candidates from Oklahoma City or Tulsa is they feel like all of them want to do school consolidation out here in the rural areas. And your illustration of cost of superintendent, I think the Oklahoman did an article on the Freedom superintendent. They've got 74 kids in their school and probably pay $100,000 a year for a superintendent. So there's your $1,200 per kid superintendent. And yet many of those kids are bused over an hour to get to their school already.
Yeah.
And so that kind of answer that you provided would suggest, okay, Freedom really needs to go away as a school because their superintendent costs are so expensive. And that scares us out here in rural Oklahoma because that's another disguised way of saying school consolidation.
Yeah. Well, here's the reality of what I said. The superintendent, I'm just challenging the fact that if McAllister can do it with one superintendent and they're over 3 schools, why couldn't you do it over your school? I didn't say anything about closing down the school. I just said it doesn't make sense to me having one superintendent over 80 kids and you got one superintendent over let's say 1,000 kids or 2,000 kids in another school district. Because then here's the deal: we're spending, if we want to be the top 6 in administration costs, I want the top 6 in outcomes. And until you bring me ideas and show me how we're the top 6 in outcomes, I'm going to keep challenging you that we're spending too much money in being the top 6 in administration costs. If I'm spending $5 million a year for my football coach, I want to make sure that I'm getting, I'm winning, right? And so that's the deal. We either want to win, and we either want to get better outcomes in our students, or we can't keep doing the same things that we're doing. And I think if you talk to every other politician, that's where I get myself in trouble, because all the other politicians won't ever say what needs to be said, and for most of the people. So that's kind of my opinion. And then on the other people in the race, yeah, I don't know if there's a candidate. I'm from Norman and live in Tulsa now, but it is what it is. I'm an Oklahoman, so.
I'm just laying it out as it is. We tend to
Absolutely.
get scared of the big city guys.
Absolutely. Who's in the race? Who's in the race that's not a big city guy?
Well, Enid, we have a candidate from Enid Enid's a town of 30,000 instead of.
Who's the candidate from Enid?
Todd Lamb, isn't it?
Yeah, Lamb.
Oh, he hadn't lived there in 30 years. All right, I'm from Sky 2. I went straight in Wayne, Oklahoma. You gonna call me a Wayne, Oklahoma? But yeah, you're right. There's 5 other politicians in the race, and if everybody wants another politician, there's 5 others to choose from. Here's another great example. You have people that send me these forms that say, fill this out, Kevin, and we'll support you. This industry, and this industry, and this industry. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to fill out the check the box little forms. If you want a check the box politician, there's 5 other guys to choose from. If you want a decision maker and a leader, I don't know what's going to hit our state in 2 years or 3 years or what decisions we need to make. If you want somebody that can make the right decision without those type of impediments, then I'm your guy. If you want somebody else that always is going to tell you what you want to hear, then I'm not your guy.
What industries are supporting you?
That's a great question too. So I'll tell you this. I filed my paperwork to be a candidate in July 15th. So July, August, and September was my first quarter to meet people, tell my story, to raise money. And I was very humbled and excited that in that first quarter, I raised $811,000, okay? To put that in comparison, the lieutenant governor raised $622,000. That's the very same quarter. I beat him by $200,000. The mayor of Oklahoma City raised $592,000. Beat him by $200,000. The other three candidates in the race raised about $25,000 or $40,000. So we beat him by $200,000. I was super excited though. I never asked anybody to do anything I'm not willing to do, and so I matched it dollar for dollar. And it was very painful, but yes, I put my money where my mouth was, and I put in $800,000. So we posted a $1.6 million number compared to their $622 and $592. So we went from unknown to all of a sudden leader in the clubhouse, and my opponents are all setting up different foundations, okay? So they're setting up dark money, and then they're getting funded from these different industries. Unlimited amount of money you can give to these foundations. I'm refusing to do that. I have to raise my money from individuals at a time. So to answer your question, no industry is giving me money because I'm not setting up the dark money foundations because I don't want the appearance that I can't make the right decision for all of Oklahoma when I get there. And I'm just telling you, you follow who's funding their foundations, and you'll see they'll never make a decision against those industries. And you follow the money. It's the way it works. I've had my head down for 18 years here growing my business. I had no idea this stuff went on, that I could go hire a lobbyist, write my own legislation, get it passed that benefited me and my industry. And that's too often what's happening right now at the state.
Does the governor have any, like the price of pharmaceuticals, you know, people giving prescriptions and stuff? Or is that just kind of on the federal level?
You know, I think that's on the federal.
You
level.
wouldn't have any input over.
You're a pharmacist. Do you know the answer to that?
I couldn't hear the question.
The federal is in control of that, but what's getting in trouble is our insurance companies. They control everything. They got the money, so they're controlling what's going on in the pharmaceutical industry like they are in other industries, you know. And I agree with you, it ain't working now.
Yeah.
It's gonna be changed, and it's gonna be hard.
But
I
Dennis,
couldn't hear your question, ma'am.
I'm concerned about the price of prescriptions. My mother lives in Texas. One prescription, I mean, as of December the 31st was $34. She goes yesterday, that same prescription is $94. And I had seen on TV these pharmaceuticals, Biogen, Amgen, and I don't know who all have just, they have just exploded the price for their drugs and can, because nobody is stopping them. And they said one cancer drug, if I heard it correctly, and I'm not sure I did, Luma something, it went up, is either 1,400% or $1,400 more than what it was before.
And it could be even.
Well, I thought they said 1,400%.
It's just like everything else. They're trying to do it like they've always do it, and they can't stop what's happening.
Yeah. I realize that's we're dealing with lobbyists with, with the big pharmas and stuff, but I didn't know if this is something we can control through a state effort, or if it's just strictly, if we can even do anything.
Yeah, I think that's a federal issue, and it's probably competition with the pharmacy companies and different patents that they have, and just kind of deregulating that to let more industry, more competition come in. To me, would be the answer.
No competition.
Right.
Well, but on the other hand, the companies may have invested millions or billions in getting a drug to market because of the government regulation, which is enormous.
Yep, that's right.
I have time for one more question, sorry.
Okay, good.
I have to get you back in the room.
Okay, good. Well, this has been so fun to be here with you today, and it's great to be in Alva and see you guys again. I just want to leave you with who I am and why I want to be the next governor, and I want to work for rural Oklahoma. I want to work for all of Oklahoma to get us growing again, and and I'll just leave it at that. That's kind of my promise to everybody, is I'm not going to be beholden to this industry or this special interest or this group. That I'm going to be working for the best of all of Oklahoma, what's best 10 years from now, irregardless of getting reelected. And so I think that's just kind of an important point to say, and I'd love to have your support. And I read Henry Bellman's book, how he got elected and how he won, and he did little events like this, 20 people at a time, and he would go to your house for coffee and cookie and meet your friends and neighbors or your friends and neighbors. And so when I come back, I'd love to come and meet some of your friends and neighbors at your homes, and I do that every single night of the week. I'm only spending 1 day a month at my company, and the rest of the time I'm meeting people and traveling the state. By the end of this month, I'll have been to every single county in the state. And so I tell people, I joke, I'm like, if I'm fortunate enough to win, when I finally get there, I'm like, dang right, I'm the governor. I've been to every city, I've been to every county, I've met every person in the entire state. So no, but it's a lot of fun. So it's great to meet everybody and hang out. And please get involved. I mean, you can like us on Facebook, check us out at stittforgovernor.com, and then tell your friends and neighbors. This is our information here, so take some of those with you. And
we plan to come back. We really want to. So if you're willing to sign our sign.
Yeah, let's pass that out real quick.
So we can get in touch with you when we come back.
Yep. And so thank you guys so much for having me here and coming and talking about our great state of Oklahoma. Thank you.